Hola, hola chicos, welcome back. This is lesson 2 and today we are focusing on sentence structure. Woo! Get hype, get hype. In your notebooks, you should have a page for terms to know because there are a lot of terms that we will be using. And so it's nice to have that as kind of like a mini dictionary for you, especially because some of the terms could be used to refer to something differently. Okay, so quick recap here of the terms you should know. We have pronouns, we talked about nouns, we talked about verbs, and we talked about adjectives, right? So there are 2 more that I want you to add there and kind of a third. So first we have here is the word cognate or cognado. This means that it is a word that either looks or sounds the same in 2 different languages. It could also be in more than 2 languages, but we're focusing on English and Spanish. So the example that we have here is salad in English and ensalada in Español. Notice how they kind of sound similar, and also they're written very similarly. The other example we have is colors and colores, right? And look and sound the same. So that's what a cognado or a cognate is. We'll be using those because, well, you already know what these mean. And that means you already know like over 1,000 words in Spanish. Woo, look at you. All right, so the other word that I want to make sure you know, because we're going to be using it this time around, is the word conjugation. We'll focus more on how it actually works in another lesson, but you should be familiar with the word. This is the changing of a verb, only a verb, okay? Depending on the pronoun or the time. So essentially, who is doing this? The examples I have here are in English because we do have conjugations in English. So if I'm saying I go or he goes, I'm changing the verb to go depending on who I'm talking about. This also changes with time. So if I'm saying like yesterday I went, I didn't say yesterday I go, right? Because went is the appropriate one for the past tense. Yesterday he went, not yesterday he goes, right? So that is the same thing in Spanish. It also changes depending on who is doing the action and when that action is happening. Those are 2 important terms for you to know this time around. There is another one related to conjugation, which I'll just bring up for you to know for the future. It is the word infinitive. We won't focus on this one this time around, but just know that the infinitive is when a verb is not conjugated. It is in its root state. So it is going to end in AR, ER, or IR. And I'll talk more about that in another lesson. All right, now that you have the terms ready to go, then let's start. So sentence structure in Spanish and in English is actually quite similar. Here in English, we'll have the word order, which is your pronoun, your verb, and then your noun. We are not going to conjugate it just because we're focusing on word order and not on how to properly conjugate it, but I will give you some examples for those of you who know what conjugation is, okay? So the first one here, the first sentence is I to eat salad. How do we say to eat in Spanish? Cough, cough, it's at the top. It's the word comer. So in Spanish, it would look like yo comer ensalada. Again, it's the pronoun, the verb, and the noun. Very similar, right? Woo! If you were thinking about how to conjugate that, then it would be yo como ensalada. And I added a little elaboration here, de pollo. The word order, though, still stays with pronoun, verb, and noun. So that's what the word comer. Now let's try a different one. The next one that we have here is sentence structure with the verb tener. Any guesses on what that means? If you guessed to have, then you are right. The sentence structure is still the same. It is pronoun, verb, noun, right? Why do I have an elephant? That's not the question here. So how do we say that in Spanish? It's still going to be pronoun, verb, noun. And that's going to be yo tener un elefante. If you were to conjugate it, you'd know that tener is a go verb. And we add an adjective on this one to say that it's a big one. Es grande. Word order is still the same. Next one we have here is an irregular one. So this is the verb gustar. If you have heard this one before, awesome. Just know that this one is a little tricky. I prefer that you see this one earlier on just because it is a phrase that you use more often, especially when you're talking about yourself. If you're not familiar with it, I want you to become familiar with it. So the order is still the same, pronoun, verb, noun. In Spanish, it's yo gustar mi perro, right? Except this time around, I am going to tell you a little bit about how to conjugate it. okay? So it's an irregular verb, which means it does not follow the regular conjugation rules. Instead of saying yo gustar mi perro here, we're actually gonna change up the pronoun as well. It becomes me gusta because I'm talking about myself, but the pronoun also changes to a mí. Now again, this is an irregular verb, which means it's affecting the whole sentence. All right, so a mí me gusta mi perro. If I was to say you like my dog, then I would change it to te gusta. Okay, so instead of me gusta, I would use te gusta because it's still the verb that I'm conjugating. So it becomes te gusta mi perro. But because it also affects the pronoun here, it would be a ti te gusta mi perro. I have a box around this section here, te gusta mi perro, because when you're talking, you actually don't need the pronoun, okay? The beauty of Spanish conjugation is that you kind of know who you're talking about because of the conjugation. So, for example, te gusta, I already know from the verb in yellow here, I already know who is doing it and when they're doing it, right? I know that you're the one that is liking, and you like my dog now. You didn't like him yesterday, or, well, I don't know if you did or didn't, but you're doing that action now, right? Essentially, for speaking, it's not always necessary. I can still understand what you're trying to tell me. If you don't use the pronoun, it's okay. But that's the beauty of Spanish conjugation. Makes life easier. All right, so let's gustar. And if you don't have this handy dandy chart here, you can honestly look up me gusta conjugation chart meme, and this will show up. Or you can seriously just write out this conjugation chart in your notebook. That way you have easy access to it whenever you want. Right, so now we're moving on to negating the verb. Okay, cool. You liked my dog. That was great. Now, how would you say I don't like your dog? Well, you add the no to it. In English, we're going to talk about a penguin here. Oh, sorry. We're using the verb tener here. The way that the sentence structure works in Spanish is you're actually adding the no to negate the verb. And it goes in between the pronoun and the verb. So in English, you say, I do not have a penguin. The no is between the pronoun and the verb. In Spanish, it's the same thing. You say yo tengo un pingüino when you're saying I have a penguin, but to negate it, you're going to put the no right in between the pronoun and the verb. Literally, it's just the word no. You don't have to add anything else. It's just yo no tengo un pingüino. In this one, the verb tener is conjugated. We were talking about the verb me gusta. I have a mí me gusta el pingüino. I like the penguin. Well, how do I say I don't like the penguin? Well, I add a no in between the pronoun, which is green, and the verb, which is yellow, and it becomes a mí no me gusta el pingüino. So whenever you're negating a verb, you just have to make sure it's between the pronoun and the verb. So again, me gusta is an irregular conjugation. So you do have to remember that the pronoun is not going to be yo me gusta, completely different. So that's okay. Don't stress too much about that. As long as you got the yellow conjugation part with the verb correct, we can pretty much get the gist of what you're saying. But if you want to push yourself and memorize those pronouns for me gusta. So using all these little pieces, how many sentences can you make? We have some pronouns here that I want you to focus with, and it is yo, which is talking about myself, tú, which is talking about you, él, which is talking about he, and ella, which is she. We have the word no, so you can negate whatever sentences you create as well. And then I want you to focus on these three verbs, which is tener, comer, and gustar, right? So that's to have, to eat, and to like. Then I'm going to have you focus on these nouns, which is perro, dog, gato, cat, león, lion, gallina, chicken, and vaca, which is cow. Moo. All right, so how many sentences can you make? Try to write as many as you can with these little different pieces, but remember, it's the pronoun, the verb, and the noun, and then negating it if you need to. All right, buena suerte, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Hasta luego, chicos.